What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. The NFL Draft is 2 weeks from today. It is so crazy that we are so close to the NFL Draft. Normally I would make a video talking about some prospects I would want the Bengals to get, but instead, in this video, I'm going to be talking about some players I do not want the Bengals to draft. There's 3 different prospects here that I'm going to be talking about why I don't want Cincinnati to get each one of these prospects. Let's go ahead and get started here. This was a player I wanted the Bengals to get just a week or so ago, but he's now made this list mainly because of off-the-field issues, and that is Texas defensive tackle Tandre Sweat. This was a guy who's been mocked to Cincinnati in the second round a lot, especially when there are scenarios where the Bengals go offensive tackle round 1 and defensive tackle round 2. There's been lots of mocks, Sweat going to Cincinnati, but we know off-the-field issues for Tandre Sweat. It's kind of been a big concern, especially the past couple weeks. He was recently arrested for a DWI, and when you look at Tandre Sweat, he was arrested for a DWI, like I mentioned. His blood alcohol level was over 25% over the legal limit. This was measured at 6:08, and the officer arrived, at his vehicle at 4:41. So there was an hour and a half where he was not tested. Realistically, his blood alcohol level would have been more than likely much higher than what it was, and it was already very high to begin with. And when you're looking at Sweat, he's very talented. He's one of the best defensive tackles in this year's draft. 45 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. And, Mel Kiper has him as his 3rd-ranked defensive tackle in this year's draft. And it sucks because when you're looking at Cincinnati, this was a guy I honestly was really hoping Cincinnati was going to get in the second round if they did not go defensive tackle round 1. But when looking at this now, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm staying away from Sweat, because you got to be really stupid to mess up this bad, this close to the draft, when so much, is on the line. Your future, your life's about to change. You've been working out, you've been visiting with different teams, and then you screw up this bad, and you do have a poor decision, make a bonehead decision, and get arrested for a DWI. But when you look at Cincinnati, really since Zach Taylor took over in 2019, it kind of seems like he's kind of had a focus on getting players who are, good people, who kind of stay out of trouble, good character, players and everything. The only outlier to that was Jackson Carman. He had obviously some off-the-field issues, but, really wasn't really made to the public until after a year he was with Cincinnati. But Cincinnati was aware of those situations. But Tandre Sweat is one player, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm staying away from. And it sucks because just last week he was a guy I was very, very excited about the possibility of him coming to Cincinnati. But Tandre Sweat is one of the 3 players I have in here that I think Cincinnati should not draft. The 2 other players here, one is a very, very unpopular opinion. I'll get to that one last. But the next player here, I don't like this player, honestly, at all. I think he's one of the most overrated players in this year's draft. I don't understand the hype with him, and that is Florida State wide receiver Keon Coleman. I do not want Cincinnati drafting Coleman at 18. That is very unlikely. I don't want Cincinnati drafting Keon Coleman at 49. I'm always for best player available, regardless of the position. And, many people would say Keon Coleman will be the best player available at 49. Realistically, I don't think that'd be the case, because realistically, more than likely, he's not even going to be the best wide receiver available. I think Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver from Florida, is better than Keon Coleman. And I think Malachi Corley, the wide receiver from West Kentucky, is also better than Keon Coleman. Both of those players are better than Coleman, and I don't know if they'll be there at 49, but if either one is, those are both players just in the position alone that are better than Coleman, in my opinion. This past season, he had 60 receptions, 658 yards, and 11 touchdowns, and he had a big chunk of his production this past season in the first game of the year against, LSU. But he is slow. He cannot create separation at all. There was 30 wide receivers invited to the NFL Combine. Keon Coleman ranked 29th out of 30 when it came to the wide receivers 40-yard dash. He ran the 40-yard dash in 4.61 seconds. Like I said, he's slow. He cannot create separation. He can't get open very often. And the more I watch Keon Coleman, he kind of reminds me of, a wide receiver who also played at Florida State, and that is Kelvin Benjamin. 2 players who aren't bad, but they just aren't fast enough to create separation and not get open. Obviously, Kelvin Benjamin was a bust in the NFL, had a good rookie season, but just was never the same. But, realistically, I think that's a very similar, situation that we can maybe see with Keon Coleman, a guy who is projected to be very good, a first-round pick, but just I think he's going to be a bust. I just don't understand the hype with him. I did a video talking about why Cincinnati should avoid him just a couple of days ago, one of the YouTube shorts, kind of mentioning some of the stuff I'm saying here. But Keon Coleman is somebody I do not want the Bengals to draft. And there's one final player here I don't want Cincinnati to get, and this is a very unpopular opinion. I do not want the Bengals to get Georgia offensive tackle Mims. I know this is very, very unpopular. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but this is just way too risky, in my opinion. When you look at Mims, he's a very, very, very good player when he's on the field. But when he's on the field, that's just not that common. You know, he has 8 starts, 803 snaps in his career. To put that in perspective, look at Houston offensive tackle Patrick Paul has over 2,900 snaps. Joe Alt, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame, has over 2,200 snaps. Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham has 1,891 snaps. All those players have much, 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 much more experience than Mims. And, 8 starts, 800 snaps. And he also had tightrope surgery on his ankle this past season. So there's some injury issues there that are more recent. Doesn't have a lot of playing time. And I just think this is very risky. Like I said, he's a very good player, but he's had injury issues. He doesn't have a lot of experience. And when you're looking at this Bengals coaching staff, everybody knows, and their mom knows, and everybody knows that we cannot develop offensive linemen at all. So when you're looking at Mims, who recently had surgery less than a year ago, doesn't have a whole lot of experience, the Bengals can't develop offensive linemen. This is, I feel like, a disaster waiting to happen. If Mims goes to a different team, maybe he might be good. But realistically, if the Bengals draft Mims, I do not think it would end well. I think it would be a bust, which sucks because I think he is a good player. But it's also one of those situations where Mims is going to be your future right tackle. He'll be your future starter right tackle once more likely Trent Brown leaves 1 year from now, with us signing him on a 1-year deal. But Trent Brown and Mims are the exact same player. They're good on the field, but them being on the field just isn't common due to their injuries and different things like that. I think this is a very, very, very risky move if Cincinnati elects to get Mims, the offensive tackle from Georgia with the 18th pick. I feel like the risk outweighs the reward here. It's just very dangerous for Cincinnati if they elect to go Mims because, like I said, we can't develop offensive linemen. He has injury issues, hasn't played a lot. It's just there's too many negatives. I feel like the cons outweigh the pros here. But Mims is the final player, I do not want Cincinnati to draft. So Mims, defensive tackle from Texas, Tandre Sweat, and Florida State wide receiver Keon Coleman. Those are 3 players I think Cincinnati should avoid in this year's NFL draft. We're just 2 weeks away from the draft. Like I said, it's absolutely crazy. By far, the fastest draft season of all time. I don't even think it's remotely close. I feel like I say this every year, but this one is definitely, came out of absolutely nowhere. But, this is a little short video talking about some players I would like Cincinnati to not draft in this year's draft. That about does it for this video. If you're new to the channel or if you've seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on our Sports Behind Show.